Hello. Hello. My name is Daniel Bridge. I'm the armchair model railroader, and I have been working on an idea of how to make Grand Central Terminal a scale model of Grand Central Terminal. And I wanted to share some of my thoughts with you today. So, I've been thinking about this a lot lately, and I'm not sure what part of Manhattan this space exists in, but I'm pretty sure it's somewhere around 97th Street. And there is a bridge that goes through the center of Park Avenue, where the New York Central used to go down Park Avenue, and then around the time that the Grand Central Depot existed, this was an open area all the way down to Grand Central Terminal, and then they covered it up so that they could hide basically the trains until they got from about 97th Street to Grand Central Terminal. Or, I'm sorry, at the time it was Grand Central Station. And then the tracks would come out into the light and the trains would enter Grand Central Station. And then around 1907, I believe it was, there was a really bad accident inside the tunnel, killed some people, and the city didn't want steam locomotives going down there anymore. They wanted something other than steam. And what the New York Central came up with was electric locomotives in the end. So while still operating Grand Central Station, they built Grand Central Terminal. And this is just a very small section of it to suggest that Grand Central Terminal exists somewhere down the line. I remember reading an article years ago in Model Railroader magazine about how you could create the illusion that somewhere off in the distance, off the layout, was a destination. And people have been doing this for years with tunnels. And I thought the easiest way to model Grand Central Terminal is not to model it at all, but to make the suggestion through the use of a tunnel portal that it exists somewhere off of the layout. And you could have it so it's set up that the trains are entering into a tunnel with way off in the background the general building, which basically blocks the view of the street of the terminal. Or maybe in the 1920s there was a famous photograph taken from Grand Central Terminal looking back north across Terminal City, and you can see all the tracks on the express level of the terminal. And it was a really cool scene before the Pan Am building was built. You could see just there was streets and avenues going over the terminal property, but all those tracks on the express level, the upper level, were all exposed to the light. Imagine coming into the city and still being out in the weather and everything, and everybody around the station could hear the screeching and squealing of all the wheels of the trains. And there was probably hundreds of I believe what they called at the time suburban trains and express trains coming into the terminal, both on the upper and lower level. And now it's all covered over. Of course, you don't have the daylight anymore, but at least you're out of the weather, because as we all know, New York City gets really cold and really, really hot. So, yeah, they could have done something about the daylight, but honestly, the New York Central needed the income from the air rights over the terminal property. So I believe this will probably be a series. This will probably be the beginning, the first episode in a series about how to model Grand Central Terminal because I have grand plans. I have grand plans of showing how I would display Grand Central Terminal so that it's possible for you to see the Park Avenue Tunnel, the abandoned side platforms. There was a very, very small station inside the Park Avenue Tunnel that was abandoned. It was deemed to be too close to the yard throat at Grand Central Terminal. So that was abandoned very early on. It's an interesting place. And it's actually in line with a subway station that's on Lexington Avenue in Manhattan. Not far from the terminal, really. It's right at the edge of the Park Avenue tunnel. And there would be a way, possibly, to create a passageway from that Lexington Avenue subway station to the abandoned side platforms in the Park Avenue tunnel, but I don't see the reason why, really. When you look at the plans online, when you look at Google, you can see that it's completely unnecessary. It would probably create so much of a traffic headache that they would need additional tracks other than the 4 mainline tracks that are going underneath Park Avenue to Grand Central Terminal. And then, I wanted to model the yard throat and also the express yard level and the lower suburban level, sort of in a pattern where you can see the lower level tracks and you can see the upper level tracks, but having enough separation between the 2 levels that you're able to see it. The entire track layout of the lower level and the entire track layout of the upper level. And the first idea, of course, was just to do something like this and just have it separated that way, and just extend the point in the throat where the tracks would go downhill. But later on, I decided that it would be a lot easier to separate the 2 and show the tracks going downhill over here on this level, but sort of disappearing underneath the benchwork here. And then have the trains here come in and out of the Park Avenue tunnel, but lead into a staging yard beyond. And just show that trains are coming and going from this spot. Pretend that they're coming and going down Park Avenue, but where Park Avenue comes out over here would actually be there would be a staging yard inside the tunnel that comes out through here to in and out through this tunnel portal that represents what's going on down here, without actually having the trains to use this crazy ramp. But that's one idea. But the most basic idea is to have the trains coming from a staging yard across the Harlem River, across the drawbridge, across the Harlem River, and then down into a very simple scene where the one of the viaducts on Park Avenue, because there are more than one. There's the one for the railroad main line for the New York Central, and I suppose it was the New Haven that used Grand Central Terminal. And they would come down across a steel viaduct that eventually turned to stone just before the tunnel opening. It was stone. I'm not sure to what street, maybe 102nd Street it was stone, and then after that it was steel up to the drawbridge over the Harlem River. And then the tunnel disappears into another staging yard that's beyond 97th, 98th Street, somewhere in there. And, to compress it, of course, to compress that space, you could just have the Harlem River and then this scene here. So that's how I would model Grand Central Terminal. Just the very basic way. more complicated way that I discussed down here, it would be in another episode of this series. So thank you for watching. Once again, sorry, excuse me. I am the armchair model railroader, and trying to do this without looking. I'm not looking. I'm looking. But yeah, this is, it's been a while since I posted a video because I had to move into this fabulous new space that you see around me. My mother-in-law very graciously built an addition on her house, on my wife's house that she grew up in, so that me and my wife could stay with her permanently, and it's been great. But moving in took a long time to get to this point, and it's still a mess in here. It's messy all over, and I keep looking away to the TV that's right across from me. I watch YouTube even when I'm making YouTube videos. So I'm hoping to make more videos in the coming weeks. Unfortunately, I have to spend a lot of time with my wife, who is she has medical problems of her own, and we'll be spending a lot of time at Mercy Hospital in Baltimore. But when I get the chance to, I'll make another video about how I would model Grand Central Terminal. The era that I would pick is definitely 1926. After the Express Yard was covered over with the Pan Am building, it just didn't have the same flavor. Grand Central Terminal got worse and worse. I remember going there in the early 80s on Metro North. I grew up in Greenwich, Connecticut, and we would ride on Metro North all the time into Manhattan. It was only, I think, a half-hour train ride, something like that. If you took an express train from Stamford to Grand Central, if you backtracked a little bit from Greenwich to Stamford and then took an express train from there to the terminal, it was a really, really fast trip. So we would do that a lot. And, you know, it was one of my early introductions into trains. That's where part of my passion is riding on the front car, looking out the front window of the Metro North Express train from Stamford to Grand Central Terminal. It was so fascinating when I was little. And it's one of those, I guess a stereotype of model railroaders is that we model our childhood, or places from our childhood, and you know, you can make it perfect. No, you can make it your own, and that's what I plan to do. Thank you for watching my video. Have a good day.